Almost happy Chinese New Year. This is one of my favorite conferences. I know I say that a lot, but it's really true. This is one of my favorite conferences, so I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy you're here. Some of my show and tell will look familiar, but it's just a nice reminder that we are about to celebrate the Chinese New Year, which is, what's the date this year? February 5th, which is our moon day, and is it a full moon or a new moon? It's always a new moon because it's set on a lunar calendar. So like Diwali, we're always at that new moon, the new year that we're about to embark on. And although we do the Diwali, the Indian New Year, and our New Year, we get to the Chinese New Year, and for me, it's a whole different practice and it's a whole different celebration, and I get excited about it for reasons that are different than the other New Years. And I love trying to get all of you excited about it. So every year we talk about energy, and that all of you being Ashtanga practitioners are actual energy practitioners, and you're all becoming energy experts just through doing your Ashtanga practice on a regular basis. And one of the ways we understand energy as Ashtangis is that we have meridians, we would say in Chinese medicine, but in Indian medicine, what would we call our energy channels that run through the body? Nadis, N-A-D-I-S. Nadis. And the nadis we believe to have like a gazillion of them running all the way through our body. How many? Everyone knows the answer to this question at Pacific Ashtanga Yoga Shala. 72,000 little veins, like you think of vessels, because we have a ton of vessels in our bodies that could wrap around the planet a few times. You have an enormous amount of these electrical circuits that run all the way through your being, down through the feet and up through the legs and all through the spine, through the arms and through the head. And these energy channels are, in old medicines, what we understand is what keeps us healthy. So in Ayurvedic medicine, we call it prana. In a yoga, we call it prana. It's more than breath. It's the energy. In Chinese medicine, we're going to talk about Chinese medicine a little bit, we call it qi. And in Japanese medicine, we call it Deidre, ki. All of that being this old science of understanding your energy and the energy of life, the energy that surrounds us. So, you know, as described as we're doing our yoga practice, the idea is we breathe and we move in a way that facilitates this pranic movement. We study the vayus and the chakras and all these different ways to understand how we're getting the best movement with our breath and our asanas. And in that, the idea is we want the energy to flow all the way through like an electrical line. And when it doesn't flow all the way through, we say there's a blockage. And in Sanskrit, what do we call the blockage? Grantis. Grantis. And I always think that it sounds like what it is. It's like a rotten little evil, you know, cartoon character that's blocking your energy from getting all the way through. But in our tradition, we're really working towards a practice that helps us remove grantis and to keep that flow of energy. And you know, when you come here and you do your first series practice for an hour and a half, you leave here feeling better and more energized rather than depleted. And that's one of the reasons is because this is an energy practice. So in the Chinese tradition, they believe in energy the same way that we do. And I have come to referring to it as containers because I always try to give you something that feels user-friendly. So when you leave here today, you're like, aha. So I always say in yoga and in Chinese medicine, I would say this is my container. And it is my job as a yogic practitioner and in my job to keep myself healthy, to manage my energy, to hold energy in through my locks. In martial arts, through the dantian, we hold our energy, and so it's not spilling out all over the place. I hold in my energy, and I move it throughout the nadis. And when you go to see a Chinese doctor, they'll evaluate you as such, like how are you holding and moving your energy. So I call this my container. So my container's name is Diana. And this container is how I keep myself healthy, and I can evaluate my energy through my yoga practice, or I can go see one of my favorite Chinese doctors in Laguna Beach named Ping Wu. And if I go to see Ping Wu, one of the things she's going to want to know is how well is my energy moving through the container, Diana. And so she does a bunch of interesting things, and she asked me a lot of like really personal questions, and I'm like, do I know you, right? And then she also, you guys have been to Ping, she'll listen to pulses, which is different than Western medicine. They're listening for 9 different pulses, and in that 9 different pulses, she can determine where my energy is flowing and where there are blockages. And so she'll usually, when she sees me, go like this, and then at the end, there's the diagnosis, right? Like your kidneys need more energy, or your liver. It's always your liver, right? It's always the liver. And so this is a way for us to actually diagnose, one way for us to diagnose this container of energy. And then we can look at Ayurvedic medicine. If you go to see a rune or a practitioner that does that, they do the very similar things, ask you very personal questions and go through some different testing, including the 9 different pulses, and tell you something at the end. Again, when I saw the Ayurvedic doctor, again, I was amazed at what he could tell me about my emotional health and my physical health, just by this simple diagnostic tool of reading my energy. And so as yoga practitioners, we understand we are energy beings. So then we extend that out a little bit to understand the art and the science of energy, to say, not only am I a container of energy, but I am housed in a container of energy. So we know that this room has energy. And we understand that this place has energy, and that's constantly shifting and moving. And when things are shifting and moving, actually, and there's energy moving around here, it's healthy. But when there are things stuck in blockages, we realize, like grunties, that it's not moving as well. And so there's a science called Feng Shui. I don't know that I'm pronouncing it actually perfectly, but the science of Feng Shui has to do with all of that, with energy, with your own container of energy, with the container you're housed in. And to understand that energy is to bring health to everything in your life. So this is a time of year when I ask all of you to read the same darn book every year. Some years we read 2 books, but I ask you to read Karen Kingston's book, Clear Your Clutter with Feng Shui. So as much as my Ayurvedic or my Chinese doctor could tell me about the container of Diana's energy, she could tell us about the container of energy that is this room, that is this building, that is Capistrano Beach, where we're located in Capistrano Beach. She could tell us about the Bagua, which is understanding a little bit more about the science, and about maybe history that's here, and what's remained from history, what's new, what's flowing, and what has granties, what's blocked. And one of the ways that she would do that is through using a low pen. And again, I apologize for my pronunciation of that. And this is my personal show and tell. This is an antique Chinese Feng Shui compass that I bought years ago. I wish I could say in China, but the story is not that exciting. But if you look closely at this, and T might do a close-up for you later, you'll see that the compass is in the center, the magnetic compass, and around this are these lines, and they're solid lines. We use these 2 words, solid and broken, solid and broken. And the way they're set up, we understand a little bit about I Ching. How many of you are familiar with I Ching? So I Ching is another science that is sort of encapsulated in this, which has to do with the elements. So these broken and straight lines represent different elements, like mountain, lake, fire. These are all elements that are determined. And then as you look through the pie pieces that come through here, it's a lot of kanji and very complicated workings to understand how to read this space. And when you look at this, you're like, man, this is truly a science, to understand this mapping of energy. That was something that we can't even see. How interesting is that we're mapping out something with a compass that we can't even see. So what's more interesting is even when you turn the compass around, what's on this side? So I'm trying to understand this container through this mapping system. When I turn it over, It's an astrology chart. So it is a map. It is the larger map that we're encapsulated in. It's the larger container, right? And then you have astrologers that study even the larger container, and they can tell us stuff about, you know, when the moon is full and the planets are aligned in a certain way, there's certain energies that are different and things shift, and that's a different science, but it's all an energetic science that we begin to understand. Ryan and Kim brought this back from Singapore for us. This is another low pen that's a beautiful one as well, from Singapore. And again, you can see the intricacy of the workings of how to study something invisible to us, to understand how to study space. So a little fact I love to share this time of year is, but I'll have to quiz you. Where was the first compass ever discovered and used in the world? The music plays. You know what, I love it because I feel like I talk about this stuff every year, but it feels new every year. So the first compass was discovered by the Han Dynasty in 2006 BC in China. And the first compass was used for what? I knew Ray was going to get it right. The first compass was used for divination. So what is divination? Just basically. Divination? Every culture has some form of divination. It's really, if you ask for a Diana definition of it, it's how we find our way spiritually. It's a way to help us on our spiritual path. And so in Ireland, they use the runes. Some cultures use tarot. The Native Americans use sticks and twigs and shamans. And in China, they used the compass, the first compass, to figure out the mapping of your own spiritual path, your own soul, if you will, or your own container, but on a deeper level of your life's path. And so interesting to me that it was years later that in China, they started using it with the military for navigation, and it wasn't until, I believe, the year 1111 to 1117 that we brought it over here and started using it for navigation. So it kind of comes all back around, you know, that navigation in our bigger container is always held for us in our smaller container, and even more so like our internal compass. We studied the compass a couple years ago of navigating your way in life. So to me, this is an important study for us as pranic practitioners, that we stop in the road for the Chinese New Year and we evaluate the energy in our life. And so in order to do that, I like you to read this book because Karen does such a great job at looking at the different compartments of energy in our life, little ones, big ones, and kind of helping us have a tool to evaluate where our energy level is in different things. And one way you can do that is just to see where things are thriving, where you feel energy, where you feel alive. And I can tell you that is where there's a flow of energy. If there are areas in your life that feel same old, stuck, not moving, kind of a downer, a little low energy, probably there's some grunties. But we would say in Feng Shui that there's a blockage. So her book is called Clear Your Clutter with Feng Shui. One of the ways we can use it is to say that there's clutter in our life, there's grunties in our life. And if I look at my house, I'll start with a bagua. I'll be like, my living room's pretty good, but maybe my living room's a little stale, and so I might move my furniture around a little bit for the New Year's and tidy up something that hasn't been fixed for a while. But then I get to the kitchen, and I see that the pantries are kind of gross or whatever, and then we move through our house that way, and you move through your bedroom and areas, and you can either just go through and see where there's piles of clutter or where there's things that are flowing and kind of go at it from that angle, or you can come at it from another angle where you're like, where do I just need to shift things in my life? So I'm going to tell them myself, it's a family tradition that we have a junk room. Does anyone else have a junk room? It's like when you have guests come over, then everything goes in there. When stuff's come in the mail, you don't know what to do with it, everything goes in there. And that junk room for me right now is my office. So that's where I have all my business files and my personal files and all that stuff's mixed together. So if Karen Kingston came to my house she would beeline it right to my junk room / office and be like, girlfriend, you got some problems. Right? And she would start going through with me the importance of not having files for gazillions of years and things out of order. I can never find a file, you know. And one of the other things I want to share with you that I love that Karen says is she goes, there are reasons why we keep things. And the psychology of that is in here. And I think it's really important to understand why we keep things that no longer fit us, or things that looked good on us 10 years ago, or things that someone gave us that are precious only because they gave them to us, not because we like them, or because we paid a lot of money for them and there's some guilt around it. So once we can kind of get right with all the psychology around why we keep things, sort of easier to let go. But one of the things that I love about, that she talks about is things that are sticky. What do you think things that are sticky means? I have a sticky problem at my house. I have a sticky problem with books and things like that. So I walk in my kitchen and I'll put Clear Your Clutter with Feng Shui down on my kitchen counter. And then a little bit later that afternoon, I'll put my journal down on top of that. It's sticky. And then it keeps like more and more things keep sticking on top of it, like my junk room, until that has become a blockage of energy there, where that little sticky pile was. We can all think of it. We think of like our closet, how many shoes do you actually wear that are in your closet, or, you know, I could go on, but all of you have your own fun to have with Clear Your Clutter Feng Shui. So we start with the house, we go through all the rooms, then guess where we go? Relationships. It's the same. So I have a relationship with you. Is it moving? Is it vibrant? Or is there some sticky stuff in the relationship where you say this and then I say that and then the stack gets and it's old and low energy, right? Or some relationships you realize, like, why do we hold on to them? For the reasons we hold on to a book that we don't use. That was an interesting example, but you know what I'm saying. Then we move all the way down to Diana, the container, colon. She ends the last chapters on the colon. And trust me, by the time you do all this work and you're looking at clutter in your life and energy, you're going to be like, man, I really need to clean my colon. It's like the brilliant ending to this. So anyway, the other book that I recommend every year, which, by the way, she has a TV show now, is called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organization. And here are 3 quotes by Marie Kondo, if I can read it without glasses. The question of what you want to own is actually the question of how you want to live your life. I like that. Keep only those things that speak to your heart. Then take a plunge and discard all the rest. By doing this, you can reset your life and embark on a new lifestyle. And I have to say, of all the things I got from her book, she really said, like, we should love our body, we should love this container and feel good about it, but we should also love the things we surround ourselves with in our containers. Like, really asking yourself, do I love this? And before you purchase something, she's big on that too. Like, am I going to really love this before you purchase it? This last quote is my absolute favorite by her. We should be choosing what we want to keep and not what we want to get rid of. So those are the glasses for your week. Have fun. I love this stuff. Namaste.